And I could move my whole body except my chest. I couldn't move my chest. Something was sitting on my chest that felt like a lot of pressure. And I go, what? He says, dude, you made God cry. Anyway, the more you say no, the stronger you get. The more you say yes to the bad things, the weaker you get. Okay. And that's probably the four-time world champion in mixed martial arts, UFC Hall of Famer. Let's go cut him off. Like, that's a smart.
Welcome to the Kingdom Awakening podcast. I'm your host, Jeff Simons. My guest today is a UFC Hall of Famer. He is an actor in an upcoming movie, The Smashing Machine, starring The Rock and Emily Blunt. He is the man that Dwayne Ludwig once referred to as a human Jack Russell Terrier, El Guapo, Bas Rutten. Bas, welcome.
Jack Russell Terrier. That's the Dwayne answer.
Well, Bas, thank you for joining us.
You're very welcome, my friend. Very welcome.
Now, I recently heard you talking about your faith. Now, I've followed your MMA career for a long time, but I started hearing you talk about your faith and some of the things that you've experienced and how God has been moving in your life in a way that was very encouraging and uplifting. And I didn't know some of those stories and what God had been doing. So for those that haven't heard that aspect of your story, what are some of the ways that God protected you? You noticed some supernatural things even when you were young.
Yeah, I have always been protected. It felt like I was a very weird kid, ADHD all over the place. I was the black sheep in the family, so to say. Everybody was nice and relaxed, and I was this kid that had a horrible skin disease, and they called me the leper in school. And severe asthma attacks. Like every 5 weeks, I would be a week in bed, not able to eat even. So really bad asthma because I couldn't breathe. Needless to say, you get bullied a lot, you don't get attention a lot, and then for me, I guess to act out was getting attention. Negative attention is still attention. So I was the class clown. I got kicked out of class. I mean, I think one teacher 1 year was like 65 times or 67 times. So that's how crazy it was. Just an insane. I was always busy, always causing people, trying to make people laugh. That was my thing because, they kind of were afraid of me because of my skin disease. So yeah, that's I think what happened early on. I got into bad things right away. I think I got caught for burglaries when I was 15. I think the first time was like over 90 of them, and then I got another time over 50 of them. And it was one of these things. I was delivering the newspaper early in the morning at 5 o'clock, so I would get up at 4. I would go into never homes. I never wanted to do something personally to somebody. It was always supermarkets, bars, like things like that. And get stuff. You steal stupid stuff. You drink chocolate milk, and just the fact that you're there. We thought it was cool. And sometimes we found money. Oh, because I was with 2 other outcasts, we would start doing that. So yeah, a lot of trouble as a kid, but still I had really good parents. Very sweet parents. Like I've never seen them argue, never seen them fight, that didn't exist in our family. So, but they always made sure that I worked for what I wanted to do. So I had a newspaper job, 2 newspaper jobs actually. I was stocking groceries. I was working at the farm. I was dishwashing at an Italian place because I already liked it to make money myself. So very happy they instilled that at least in me. So later in life, when I got a lot of work suddenly, it wasn't. It was easy for me to do because I've been doing that since I was a kid. But for me to escape, I was always by myself before I got the other 2 guys with me. And I was in the forest. I was in the forest a lot. We had a big forest close to our home. Like I walked 50 meters and there was a row of trees going into a forest. And I already could swing from every treetop to every treetop to get into the forest. And I had to jump down because I would land on a horse stable. Was there? There was always a horse. I would stable. And then the first tree I climbed in, I could go through that forest pretty much. I think there were maybe 6 or 7 spots that I had to climb down because the distance was too much. But otherwise, I would swing treetops to treetops. And that was my life. That was 3 hours a day. I was doing this all day long. And you talked about it, crazy things. I fell out of a tree one time, and an insane high tree. This is not like, it was 26 meters, 20 feet high. I think it was a very tall tree, a very big one. and I fell all the way from the top. The top broke, and I fall down, and I landed like I just jumped this high on the ground. On the ground, Oop. I landed like this, and I'm standing there, and I have no idea. And I look behind me, and what happened was with my butt, I landed on this big, thick branch, and somehow that was the perfect way to break my fall. I didn't even feel my butt. It broke in such a way that I just literally landed like this on the ground. And I'm looking at the tree and I can't believe it. And the whole branches broke. And that started happening a lot. You know, I had a car accident where we flew over a crash barrier, no seat belts. Was an open roof. Well, an open roof. It was a roof this thin that you could roll up, but that flew off right away. We got spun over. We flew over the crash barrier down a hill with trees everywhere. Missed every tree somehow. Upside down in the water. I didn't know how deep the water was. I saw my buddy flying around in the car, so I put him in my guard. It was in 96. Actually, tomorrow in 96, that is 29 years ago, I think, right? Yeah, 29 years ago. So it's almost 30 years. Water comes in. My body is knocked out. I have to kick the windows out, pull them out. Thankfully, it was not that deep, that water. But I mean, I had nothing. I had a scratch. That was it. He had a whole skull was open. You know, he had to, well, his skull was whole, but the whole skin, he needed God knows how many stitches. And I simply had nothing. The steering wheel, I remember, was like this in the car because I was holding it while I shot it to the spin. So I bent that whole thing like a 90-degree angle. It was the most insane thing. And all these little things, they happened to me that at the time you think yeah, it's just luck. It's just luck. But little things. You know, I was talking also in the conversion story about my dad that a woman, a person drives in front of us. We're in Amsterdam, and suddenly a kid is driving with his hands loose from the wheel from his bicycle because everybody rides a bicycle there. And he suddenly comes on the road, and my dad hits the brake. He hits the brake. The kid goes back. He hits the gas again, and at that moment, behind the truck, a woman with a baby. I don't know what she was thinking. Just walked on the street, and my dad he was on time to hit the brakes. And I go, oh my God. And my dad, what? We didn't hit her. I said, no, but Dad, you understand? If that boy wouldn't have done that, you would have freaking nailed her. She would have been dead. And the kid would have been dead. And that was, everybody was quiet in the car. But little things like that, it started picking up.
Okay, so you've had these experiences of God protecting you. Now, I also, if I remember from your story correctly, you also had stories of demonic things that you experienced too. Can you share some of those?
You've tried to fill that hole. There is something missing. And it's, of course, the freaking 15, 17,000 people yelling if you knock somebody out. It's a good feeling. So, you start replacing. I couldn't train anymore. I had injuries. And then you start replacing that feeling, of course, with drinking or drugs So I started doing that a lot, but I've never been the crazy guys, of not the violent guys. But I always say at home, dancing with the kids on the music, being drunk it's not being a good father, not being a husband, not being a man, right? You don't have yourself under control. And it was at a time that I started getting attacked by a spirit that was in the house. And later we found out there was a woman who passed away there. She was like 75. My kids actually knew what she looked like. They would see her through the window looking outside, and they both described her the same. And it was that woman. And I think now later back in life, I'm thinking it wasn't a demon. It was that woman who just was slapping me around, said, "Hey, look at you. You got this beautiful family. I mean, what are you doing? You're drinking the whole time. And it wasn't like I woke up with drinking, but I would start at 3 o'clock and that was on. And then it was every day, So, and I always knew kind of that once I start doing it in the morning, I should stay away from that. So thankfully I did that. And it started with, what people say, oh, sleep paralysis. The only problem with that problem is that I was clear awake and that I could move my whole body except my chest. I couldn't move my chest. Something was sitting on my chest that felt like a lot of pressure, and the pressure was so intense that I couldn't breathe because I couldn't expand my chest, and then you can't breathe, right? And the only way to get out of it was getting super aggressive. And I tried to throw my leg, which I was able to do, my legs out of the bed. I tried to pull myself out, but the pressure was too much. And I also could move my hands, but it was like something was sitting here, so I couldn't grab it. I couldn't do anything because it felt physical. So I thought maybe I can grab it and throw it off. And then profanity at the time, because that was still, I was used that a lot at the time. And I would scream dream. And then my wife would wake up. I just again, I go again. And then I start challenging it. I said, why don't you do it now? I'm going to go to sleep. You come now. If you really are that tough, bring it down to my level so we can fight. Otherwise, you'll complete this if you don't want to do that. I start poking it and trying to figure it out. But that happened like 5 times, I think. Um, and then a big one happened one day. Then we came home and I felt somebody was in the house. So I had the old StarTex phone, that was all the way back. And I dialed 911 and I told my wife, I said, if you hear something, hit send. I said, but don't worry, I know where the weapons are. I know where everything is. But there's somebody in the house. And I walked into the house, and there was a dining room on this side of the wall. There was a wall here, and here was an open kitchen. I went into the back, and the dining room was connected to the kitchen in the back, and it had a doorpost with a really thick curtain hanging in front of it. Now I thought that person was on this side of the wall, so I started walking here on this side, making a lot of noise. Hopefully, he would do this, and then I make a U-turn, and I'm going to catch the guy. And I come around the corner, and true enough, the curtain flies up against the ceiling. So I keep sprinting because somebody just ran through the freaking thing. And it didn't move, I always tell people. It flew up against the freaking ceiling. And there was nobody in the house. And that was the first time I was like, okay, that just happened. So these things started happening.
Right.
Then I decided to challenge the spirit at 3 a.m. No clue about Jesus 3 p.m. passing away at 3 a.m. being the demonic activity I desired. No clue why, but I did. In that room, in the dining room, where it's a chandelier, and it was always cold there, and there was this weird smell sometimes. It was really weird. And I just under the chandelier, I just started challenging, and I remember the hairs on my neck and everything went up, and I said, let's bring it down to my level. Just let's make this physical. Make it mental, whatever, but so we can fight. I don't want to do this stuff anymore. I want you to just show yourself. And somehow it stopped. Then I took another fight after 7 years of not competing, which my wife said I'm crazy because she said she didn't fight for 7 years. I said, honey, but first of all, it's money. We want a house with a pool, right? Well, 250 yards up is a house with a pool. And it's going to stop me drinking. I mean, there's no way I can train and drink. So I'm going to be forced to stop. So that was the idea. And it worked out. Everything worked out. Won the fight. All the injuries came back, though. So I knew this was my last fight. I couldn't fight anymore. And we moved to a different house. And then we were in a different house. And that's when, after the first night, my daughter slept upstairs. And I asked my daughters when we were having breakfast, how the first night was. It was great. The youngest one said that, the other one said, yeah, it was great, but I had a visit from two boys. Two boys? You mean spirits then? And she goes, yeah. I go, you're not freaking out, because she's very, she would normally freak out. She says, no, they were very nice. One kept playing on the bed the whole time. And I asked him just, hey, I want to go to sleep. And he left me alone. I go, honey, how old? She says, I don't know, 17, 16, something like that. And I'm looking at my wife. I go down to the computer and I type in if something ever happened in my house. And in 2001, 4 kids, a girl and 3 boys, went out of control with the car on Christmas, and they flew through our wall next to the house. So we're walking outside and we see where they repaired the wall, and 2 boys died, one 16, one 17. And that was a big one for me. That was like, okay, now I had the physical attack. I saw the curtain flying up. I mean, and now this, which she didn't have no clue about, that was weird.
So how exactly, for those that haven't heard this story, so how exactly did you come to the faith?
My conversion came in 2014 when I was shooting the movie Mall Cop 2 with Kevin James. And Kevin never asked me. I knew he was Catholic, religious. I didn't even know Catholic because he knew that to stay away from that. And he told me one day, I want to go up to my room to eat and then in the break and come back. And he says, why don't you sit in here? You can smoke cigars outside the Wynn Hotel, in a cabana. We have a guy coming in just to want to talk about how the world came together. And if he would have said Jesus or God, I would have said, I'll see you in an hour, buddy, because it was still not really grasping. And then Leo Severino, he started, and a story that I always have to say first is, like, I took a lot of medication as a kid, so I forgot a lot. Like holidays, I don't remember, only like highlights. My memory was very affected by the medication that I was taking. Thankfully, figured that out because there was another woman telling my mother, hey, my kid was taking that, and his memory was completely shot. So once they stopped it, everything became okay. But when I was 10, I don't have any memories. Maybe from 10. Maybe it was also because I was bullied, and you tried to block that out. But there was this one super vivid memory every day that I was, for me, looking outside the window, and I was staring at the street. And the whole class, the teacher tried to get a hold of me, and suddenly he's shouting. I heard him, but I could not stop looking at the tree. And he goes, Rutten. I go, what? He goes, what are you doing? I said, I'm looking at the tree. What about the tree? I said, how did it get there? And he goes, well, they planted it there, idiot. I go, yeah, I understand that. I said, but where do trees come from? I mean, if you go to the tree before, you go all the way back. Where do trees come from? And it was so weird that I was so in my head, and I never knew why it was in my head. And then Leo Severino, he started doing that talk at the Wynn Hotel outside the cabana, lining up a cigar, get a Coke, And the first thing he says, the leaf fell from the tree. He says, the leaf just reached its end destination. He says, let's go backtrack that leaf. And he goes to the branch, and then he goes to the tree before, and he goes to the tree before, and he starts backtracking. And I'm sitting there, and I go, like, what do I know this from? This is like, it's almost like a familiar story to me. And then when Leo started doing that, I don't know if it dawned on me at that moment, but the way he did it and started going back in time, and then it was so solid. It was so without a doubt that we are a design, that this didn't happen by accident. And as soon that was made, that connection, then God was a very small step because that's the designer, of course, and that was it. Then that literally all these things that happened in my life, poof, 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 shut in my head. And I was full on. And it was crazy because I came home. My wife was laughing because I spent 2 months in Vegas, crying out loud, where the devil is at work at the highest level. And she says, oh, so now you're Catholic? Yeah, we'll see how long that goes. Because with me, normally, something 6 weeks, I'm very in, and then it's gone. But it kept going, and I kept adding to it, and I kept doing more and more. And I started going to mass and daily mass. And I go, oh, you know what? The prayers, if you do in Latin, the demons really don't like that. Okay, let's poke the bear. Let's start doing everything in Latin. So I start, pushing more and more and more to the faith. And they started to see me change. My wife's son. So then one day I asked her if she wanted to marry me again. We already got married twice. One time it was to get a citizenship, so we all married and then apply for the citizenship. Otherwise, everybody has to do it separate. And I told her there, I said, we'll do a big wedding later, which was in 2004. We did a big wedding, but not for the church. But this time, it was 2014 or 15 that I asked her, but I said, this time I want to marry for the church. So what took all these experience for me was for her, it was just looking at me and seeing me change into a different guy. And that was the faith.
So for you, it was once you came to the faith, it's like all these different puzzle pieces start coming together. The experiences that you remember, God protecting you as a kid, you're like, oh, that was God looking after me.
Yeah.
And then the demonic stuff, you're like, oh, that those things are those are real and it's dark spirits. And now you start to get some language for it. And it all kind of comes together in your marriage. And it's for you, it starts to all make sense. Even the story of how the gospel gets presented to you in the story of a leaf and a tree, it goes all the way back to your childhood where you remember having this question. It's like God, he gave you the exact answer that you needed to hear from a question that you had even when you were a kid, which is just it's so cool.
Yeah, I
um
was 10 years old.
it's
You put me in that room. I can tell you where I was sitting. I know everything about that room because it's very vivid in my mind. I know exactly where it was. It's crazy.
and so I'm a former meth addict that was suicidal, but I actually remember a time where God uh where he protected me. I was on just I wasn't high at the time, but I was driving on a freeway, 6 lanes of traffic. I was in the middle changing lanes, and somebody slams on the brakes. My car spins around, surrounded by cars. I'm now rolling backwards, and there's cars going 70, 80 miles an hour. A semi truck passes me on one side, and I rolled into the median. I'm like gripping the steering wheel, just panting in adrenaline. And it takes me a second. I realize nothing happened to
Yeah.
me. Cars passed left and right, and it's just shows how much God loves each one of his children, and that he's looking out for us, and uh, trying to protect us and save us from ourselves a lot of times.
I had things that I did. I broke a toilet, the rim of a toilet with my head. I fell, slipped backwards it was in Hawaii, and I hit it, and I don't remember because I was completely drunk. And but I have
Mm.
this thing that I have to shower before I go to sleep, whatever situation or whatever I am in. I need to shower, otherwise I can't sleep. So I'm going, I pop a freaking Valium, I guess, and I go into the shower. I come out, I slip, and I hit. So this I don't remember, but I remember something. I go, in the morning, I wake up, I go, was the toilet broke? This is so weird. So I'm getting up and I go to the toilet. I go in the restroom, I see the toilet, but I hear it flushing, which is weird. So I'm sitting down because I always do that because I don't have to turn the lights on. Otherwise, I go all over the place. So I sit down when I pee because otherwise, I can't steer, so to say. And now I'm sitting there. I go, you know what? I got to wake up. And I lean over and I hit the light switch on, and there's bloody handprints all over the place. Now, I don't know what happened. So I'm freaking out that it's not me, right? I'm looking in the mirror. It's not me. Where's the blood come from? Did I kill somebody? Oh my God, I don't. So now I'm going through the whole apartment. I look in the closet. I look if I see a chalk line downstairs that I threw somebody off the balcony. I have no idea what happened. And then the telephone goes, and it's the security. They need to come up. And I remember this beautiful lady comes up, and she sees a picture of me. And I always make these funny signing pictures, like in a 70s suit with a teeth, a smile, and a big bling. And it says, El Guapo says dance, like a funny thing. It's a 70s old suit. And I'm like, hey, like this on the picture. And she goes, is that you? I go, yeah. She goes, oh, it's a nice picture. She says, hey, listen, my boss is so angry. It's unbelievable. I said, what do you mean? What happened? I said, well, you broke a toilet. I said, oh, so that was real. So that, so I slid backwards and the freaking toilet shattered. Turned out when the boss came around the corner, he recognized me. He goes, Bas Rutten, hey! So everything was okay. And the funny part was when I went down, there was a fitness convention. There were a bunch of bodybuilders sitting at the table, and everybody was having a really good time, like too good of a time. I go, what's going on here? He says, man, we all got free breakfast. I got free breakfast? Why? As some idiot on the 42nd floor broke something and the whole floor started floating with water. So all the luggage got wet. I go, you're welcome. And he goes, what do you mean? I said, that idiot is me, buddy. I did that. It was the most insane thing. But how can you break a toilet, the rim where you sit on, with your head? You explain to me how that's even possible that I'm not dead. Somehow I find the weak spot in that rim of my skull finds it, and the blood that was from my back of my head. So I was like, oh shit, and I fell all over the place. That's where the bloody handprints came from. It was my own blood, But the fact that I broke that, how is it even possible that I'm alive? And these things happen a lot. I mean, I can tell you stories. You go, there's no way. There is no way. On a rim outside the window in Japan, totally drunk, on a ridge like this, literally with my heels on it, want to knock on the window next to me because I thought Frank Shamrock was in there. Ha 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 ha, 40 freaking stories up or higher, and then it was a different couple. But why didn't I slip off? Or why didn't I, security got
Yeah.
called again. It was the whole thing. But I mean, insane things that I constantly, somehow I all survived it. And once you start thinking about that, you go, okay, this,
Yeah.
I mean, it can be by
Well, even
accident, but so many accidents.
even things like, you mentioned your daughter seeing the spirits, right? Even that language, in the Bible we see Elisha opening the eyes of his servant so that he can see what's happening in the spirit. You start to get the language and an understanding of, oh wait, some people have a gift, have an ability to see things that are there, that spiritually there, that the rest of us can't see.
Yeah.
And the stories in the Bible are incredible. And when you start believing the stories in the Bible, it's like, wait a minute, there's the sea parts in half and people walk on water, and there's miracles of healing and all these different things.
Which is all proven, by the way. That's the crazy part.
Right.
with the pillar,
Right.
the burning pillar. That's where they cross, and they found these chariot wheels in the bottom of the ocean, and all these are all things happen. I thought the Ark of Noah, it is found. It's in Turkey, it's exactly the measurements that the Ark had. That was the Bible was prescribing. And then these fun facts, like till this day, every ocean liner is built to those specifications, the same one as the Ark of Noah, because if they deviate from it, the freaking ship will capsize or whatever it does, it will not hold. Even the air holes in there was exactly like, I think, 32 inches or something. But if it's too close, it's not enough air. If it's too big, they freeze to death. I mean, all these things were so. The food in Ezekiel, the bread that God tells him to do,
Hmm.
what he has got to go, 390 days? He's in exile, and he can only eat bread that God says. Well, and that bread is made by the 9 essential amino acids, which form one freaking protein. It's in the Bible. That's a recipe. It's thousands of years old. I mean, it's insane. And then the fact, how many authors? Written 40 authors, and then over 1,600 years, and everything falls together.
Yep.
3 different languages, 3 different continents, and they all predict things. And there's already 500 of them came true in the Bible, like to the letter. And Jesus has over 300, the ones that that prophesied that came true. The
Hmm.
chances of that mathematically is 1 to the 3 on the power I hear. Like that's a one with 300 zeros behind it. That's what I like to say to an atheist. I say, what do you think the chances that God is real? 1 in a million? And most of the time they say already yes. I say, I'll make it a billion. I'll make it a trillion. Make it like let's do 12 zeros, and then I explain them this story. 300 zeros behind it. Try to fight that, try to refute that. It's almost impossible. The 66,000 connections between the First Testament and the Second. I mean, it's impossible. If somebody tried to do that now, and that's at this time, maybe they can get away with it. But over 40 years, and again, or 1,600 years, 40 authors, and in all these different languages and continents, it's it's just impossible. But nobody has the time to look for a Bible anymore
Right.
because they steer us away from it, and that's why it's fake.
Mm. Well, I mean, and we could go on about the historical things, and I think they've recently discovered the sulfur balls where Sodom and Gomorrah used to be. So they found the burning sulfur. So there's all this historical confirmation of the stories that we have from the Bible. Um, Now, I recently listened to a couple of your sermons, and uh, and you shared in there the story of confession, and it's something. So one of the things that we talk about on this podcast is when it comes to repentance, you have to confess, you have to acknowledge what you did to start the process of repenting, and and I love some of the things that you shared about it, where you said, well, one, you mentioned how many pages you had of things to confess your first time into confession, but also you were saying, hey, don't switch priests,
Oh yeah.
and and that's something that we see when it comes to the Protestant practice of Christianity. There's it's rare for people to confess, which it says in James, confess your sins one to another. So most of the times people will just confess in private and forget, hey, you're supposed to confess to somebody in spiritual leadership. And then, but in doing that, to the mature thing, which is harder now, but the mature thing to do is to continue going to that individual and say, you know what? So because you're bringing your stuff in front of them and saying, you know what, I'm not perfect, and it doesn't make us look good, it doesn't feel good, but
Oh yeah.
that's actually what repentance is. So, i- what led you to to write down all of the pages of things that you wanted to confess?
They told me how to do it. But Hebrews talks about it, right? For the high priest chosen from among men is appointed to act on behalf of God in relation to men. To offer sins and offer gifts. Oh no, to offer sacrifices and gifts for sins. So, and it's like you said, if you confess something to yourself, it's worthless. You say you're doing it to Jesus. Like, for you, imagine the worst thing ever. You rape somebody. And then you're in your car and says, "Oh no, no, I believe. I'm sorry. I won't do it anymore." And you're forgiven. I simply don't think it works like that. Like you said, confessing. I remember when I was caught with the police with all the burglaries. Confess. You're sitting there, you're sweating bullets, and that was with me also. There was so much I did, So I started to write it down, and I wrote it in code down because I was afraid somebody was going to find my phone, you know. So, and then I printed it over on pages, and they said, print it, delete everything on your computer, get it out of there, and then just burn the pages afterwards. And I walked in there, with Father Justin, poor Father Justin. It was at the Norbertines in California. I really like those guys. And I remember he was sitting there, and I had the whole game plan. I started with a light one, a little heavier one, hit him with a heavy one, go back to a very light one, like this whole screenplay of me. But these guys are sitting there and going, dude, I heard this, I heard this, I heard this. It's like it's not like I was killing people. But I was sweating. I remember I was sweating, and it was this one moment that Father Justin, he kept eye contact with me, and he was leaning over, and he turned. There was a fan on the floor, and he turned the fan towards me. I remember it was a very funny moment. And he just gave it, and he sat back again, and I was like 2 hours and 20 minutes, and oh my god. But it was great, and the fun part was when after the confession. I call Kevin. Kevin told me to call him right after to how I feel, because she said you're breathing God's air now. The lifters off your shoulders. And I go, dude, you're never going to believe this. I said, check this out. When I walked in, it was clear skies, not a cloud in the sky, zero. It was completely open. Sun was shining, beautiful. When I came out, it was raining. God is washing away my sins. And he goes, oh no, 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 no. And I go, what? He says, dude, you made God cry. This is the comedian that he is. He had to throw it in. I'm like, dude, it's freaking me out. You know. So, but I had to write it down because it was just too much. And then still after that confession, it's like I go an examination of conscience. I do that in the evening, right? That's kind of a confession, what you're doing. And I wrap it up with a whole bunch of prayers that I do for if, God forbid, something happens that at least is going to look at me. Oh, shoot, what I want to say with that. Yeah, it's like an examination of conscience. Ah, man, now I lost the track of that. What I wanted to say with that.
So for those that aren't familiar with an examination of conscience, now this is something that you do every night, and I think I've heard you talk about it on multiple occasions. You do this every day. So for those that are not familiar with the practice, what is an examination of conscience?
Well, it's simple. You go, during the day, you do a whole bunch of stuff. And in the beginning, what you need is just your notes. That's what I did. Because if I do something that I didn't like, I write it down. Because you have to get used to this. And then in the evening, you pull up your notes and then you go over the things that you didn't like that you did. But then there's also things that you, for instance, didn't do but should have done. And I'll give you an example. It still bothers me, this example. It's a stupid example. Like I was training in a hotel room somewhere. And I walk in, and for my body, I look great. I'm very blessed with great genetics. So I even when I don't train, I always look the same. I'm the same weight now as when I started fighting. Over these last 30 years, I didn't gain weight, I didn't lose weight. I look the same. People go back, oh, what did you do? What do you do? I go, don't ask me, man, because I can eat whatever I want. But anyway, so I'm training there, and there's older guys there about my age who's also good in shape, looks good, He's not super cut and everything, but he looks good. And he's talking to this lady. He says, oh my God, sir, he says to me, man, you look very good. I go, oh, sir, thank you very much. I really appreciate that, sir. But then when I went back, I go like, what? Why didn't I say back to him, well, look at yourself. You're looking great. And that those little things, they might not seem a lot for other people, but for me, it's like that. I had a chance there to give him the same props back because he did look good, and he does work out every day. And those little things, they go over my head. What did you do wrong? And this is with confession also. It's really weird, and every person who confesses will tell you the same thing. It's the same stupid confessions over and over again. It's the whole time. It's just drinking. It's a drinking. It's a drinking. Okay, now let's just stop freaking drinking because I don't want to confess that anymore because so now I suffer. Because this is a fun one. The great Scott Hahn would say that, and that really opened my eyes. And my way of thinking is the same, but he said it the best. He says, everybody says, "Oh, I'm suffering because I sin." He goes, "That's backwards. You sin because you do not want to suffer. That's why you sin." Well, what did he say? Yeah. Because if you take 2 drinks and you really want a third one, well, to say no to the third one at that moment is suffering for you because you want to feel your needs. No, saying no to that is suffering. And if you do that, 2 drinks is okay. It's moderation, it's temperance, one of the cardinal virtues, temperance. then you're completely okay. But it takes suffering to say no. If you're a 4 or 5-year-old guy who doesn't have enough, love at home, so to say, and this 25-year-old start talking to you in a bar, and she's very cute, and she invites you to a thing, well, saying no to that at that moment is suffering for you. But we don't do that. We do it, and then later we say, oh, we suffer because we did it. No, that's backwards. You should have suffered yesterday. And that's what I do now when I go to a party and I think, am I going to drink? Well, not now because I don't drink. But before I say, am I going to suffer now? By saying no, or I'm going to suffer tomorrow morning, because either way, you're going to suffer, right? It's going to be with a hangover, or you're going to have a fun night, without the alcohol, and you suffer now and you say no. And then once I start saying no, that is a word that a lot of people need to know in this modern age right now, because nobody wants to suffer anymore. Everything is comfort. And everything needs to feel dandy. If the temperature is too high, oh my God, it's too hot, it's too cold. You're in freaking air conditioning. You should be happy. A lot of people around the world don't have that. With the food, it's too cold, it's overcooked, the complaining. The whole time we're so weak. I always say we call it pussies. And with pussies, I say, yeah, I made an abbreviation for the word pusillanimous. That's why I say it so weird, pussy. Lack of courage, lack of determination, cowardly. And that's what we are. We're cowards. And then when I say we, I mean myself too, because don't think I'm sitting here, I have everything under control. Now I'm doing really well. But it's also because a month ago I had an ablation on my heart. And I go, okay, God, you let me go through this, that I'm going to really take care. Since then, I stopped every little thing. I do nicotine patches now, but already half the size that I normally do. You see, but that's my only vice that I have right now. Before was, oh, let's take a little bit of kratom, let's take a drink here. In the evening I can go to sleep, smoke a vape pen, which actually the cardiologist told me to do. And I actually asked the priest, is that okay? Because I never do it during the day, ever. He says, no, if you just use it for sleeping, it's okay, because God made that plan for a reason. Now, if you become non-productive, yeah, that's the thing. If you're all day long and you're playing video games, well, that's the cardinal virtues. You can't do that. So it's easy for me to say right now, but I'm 60 years old. I should have learned this when I was freaking 20 years old. You see what I mean? And now it's easier for me to control. So, but it's hard. And in this world, because everything, like I said, is comfort. We all want to be petted, and nothing is a challenge anymore. And you can do anything. You can do anything. I want to be a freaking jet fighter pilot. That's what I want to be. I can't. My ADD, I crashed the freaking thing right away. You see what I mean? So you know your limits, know what you can do. If you're sitting there all day long and you try to eat that food and you want to be a professional athlete, it's not going to work. Ask David
Right.
Goggins. He was like that. And he turned his freaking life around. I mean,
Right.
that is the guy I look up to. That's like, if I don't want to do something, do it. Because that's how you mentally get stronger. I don't want to work out today. Still do it. Now, you're not only physically stronger, you're also mentally stronger. And Goggins, that is the guy who does it 10 times that. So I would ask myself, what would David Goggins do? Right? That's literally what I tell myself. Well, he would work out. So guess what? I am going to work out. I don't want to do a cold plunge today. It's cold outside. What would David Goggins do? Well, he jump in the freaking water. Again, you got to jump in the water.
You're going to bring back the bracelets of WWJD, except for it's going to be WWDGD.
These are mine. This is how I stopped sinning. And it started with profanity. And my friend says, get a rubber band. And every time you say a bad word, you start slapping the leg. And in the beginning, you're not used to it. It hurts on the second or on the first one. Slowly but surely, of course, if you do a lot of profanity, you're going to do it a lot and you get used to it. But then just do 3-4 times in a row. Trust me, within 3 weeks, 95% of my swearing was gone. Whoa, wait a minute. If it works with that, I should be able to do this with everything. So now somebody idiot writes something negative that makes absolutely no sense. Instead of reacting, I just pull my rubber band, fuck, and let it go. And I just let it go. You can't control what other people think. That's a very basic rule, and that I use 20 times a day. But they might think I can't control that. I know I did not, but more importantly, God knows that I didn't do it. Whatever they think, it's their way. It's not my problem. I don't know this person. Apparently, she doesn't like me for something that I didn't do. So I can't control that. So I can go out and say, but I have to try to explain. Those people are never for reason. So you can do whatever you want. What, you got to save one person? They don't get it, Let it go. And the whole social media, by the way, let it go. Look at my social media. Oh, but you're posting these videos. Yeah. I shoot freaking 20 videos in one day, and I let somebody cut it up, and he posts it at times with my captioning that I write. He posts online, but you won't see me make a picture of myself. Say, "Oh, I'm thinking about the future." What is that going to do? That picture or a selfie? You go, "Hey, look where I am right now." You know, who cares? You know, and then looking for the likes that you're going to get. You're so pulling yourself away from all the joy and everything that's in the world. Did you know that the average 17-year-old right now spends 93% of his free time on the phone, on the internet?
Mm,
That is
mm,
kills everything. And that's what the society wants. They don't want you to succeed. They want what you have, but they don't want to do the work, what you had to do in order to get there. You know, it's a big
right.
difference. Oh, I can do that. No, you can't. Oh, I start training next week. Why not tomorrow? Why not today? Oh, now it's too late. Okay, tomorrow morning, sign up. Make that freaking decision, but they don't. It's Monday, and on Monday there's a new excuse. It's always like that. And once people start toughening up, stop being pussies, then everything is going to be just fine. But boy, the world needs help. Let me tell you that the devil is winning. I mean, look at the seven deadly sins: pride, wrath, greed, envy, lust, sloth, gluttony. They're all going
Right.
100% right now. All of them.
Right.
I mean, he's winning at this moment. We know he's not going to win at the end, but the
Right.
bad guy is winning.
Well, what I'm hearing you talk about is in Galatians it talks about the difference between the flesh and the spirit. And if you want to follow the spirit, it's always at war with the flesh. So when you're defining strength is saying no to
Yeah,
sin, it's you're resisting the deeds of the flesh and pursuing the fruit of the spirit. So, love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, self-control. Right? And self-control is the one that I'm hearing you emphasize of and in the message that I heard from you where you were discussing that a real man is one who's in control of his weaknesses, vices, and imperfections, and is not a slave to his passions, emotions, and desires. That definition is one, it's self-control, but also you said that the more that you say no to something that is, you called it a form of suffering, of rejecting something sinful, you actually get stronger. Like that's what actually brings back masculinity, is saying no to the sinfulness as opposed to the ease of saying yes to whatever the vice may be.
that's it. And what you said, yes, the spirit is willing and the flesh is weak, right? That's also
Mhm.
what I say. Yes, saying no makes you strong. So, like I said, uh, you sin because you don't want to suffer. And that's everything. You have to keep that line, because if you say no to something really good for something better later on, that's actually, what do you call it?
Delayed
Uh,
gratification.
no, it's a word that we always use. Oh my God, like I have the blank. If you hear the word, it's like it's when you're always in character, you're always doing something at the time. You have a routine. It's called. I don't know why I'm throwing a blank right now. But anyway, the more you say no, the stronger you get. The more you say yes to the bad things, the weaker you get. And how do you know? It's very simple. Like I told myself 300-400 times in the morning when I wake up with a hangover, today I'm not going to drink. And then 3 o'clock, I get my first drink. And then when you do the second time, you're already weaker. And the 100th time, it doesn't matter anymore. Now I'm already used to the whole feeling. That's the thing with vices. You get used to them. It's like the thing with sex, where all the crazy sex comes from. It doesn't start like that. It's just constantly pushing the boundaries. What can we do
Mhm.
more crazy, more crazy, more crazy, more crazy? But you get used to that. So now we got to up it again and up it again, because you want to have that feeling. The first beer that you drink, or two beers maybe, oh, you get a really good feeling. Well, guess what? That won't work, never work with two beers. Maybe one more time, but now you're going to need three. And then you're going to need five. And then and that's addiction. Every time to get
Right.
that dopamine effect back. And you have that also with buying. I need the newest phone. I need the newest phone. Oh, man, once I let that go, just get a phone when it breaks. Why do you need the new phone? You fool yourself every time with that dopamine, dopamine. What we need is serotonin. Serotonin is the peaceful quiet, and that goes very slowly, it goes down. Dopamine is boom. And now I need more in order to get that same high. And
Right.
this is the crazy part. You know what kills serotonin? You guessed it, dopamine. But
Mm.
what does that mean? That means the more you buy, the more you feed, the unhappier you get. And the problem is we confusing happiness with pleasure. Vices give you pleasure. Happiness is a complete different thing. Happiness, again, is serotonin. Pleasure is dopamine. So stop buying, stop doing all this, stop feeding yourself. How many times do I talk about we have a peaceful person in us and a hateful person in us? Everybody has that. And let's call him a monster. Well, which monster is growing the fastest, the most? The one that you feed the most. So if I put anger in it, that thing is going to win. It's going to be bigger, 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 bigger. No, put love in it, man. Crush the other one. Yeah, but it's so
Right.
fun to freaking go, That's why all these hateful comments, they get more reactions. And, oh, well, I have no attention. So if I write a hateful comment, I'm going to get attention. Oh, finally, I got attention. You see, they're doing what I did when I was a kid with all the craziness in class.
Well,
Negative
and
attention
yeah.
is still attention.
Well, and also now with the internet, where people feel empowered to voice whatever their opinion is, but they would never say that to you in person. But they feel because it's anonymous, they're willing to say things. I also, so when it comes to the self control, I see how that relates to like sins of commission, right? So things that you do that you commit a sin. Now, you were also talking about when you were mentioning recollection. I would call it a sin of omission, like where you wanted to say something back that was nice to that guy,
Yep.
but you remembered. Like I'll just tell a quick story. So I was believing that you're supposed to be able to pray for people, pray for strangers, and I had this conviction. I said, God, just I want to be able to pray for somebody. And I'm driving on the freeway, and there's a car accident, and I had this feeling of, oh, I should go pray for them. And there's an ambulance there, and I thought, well, what am I going to do? I'm not going to interrupt the ambulance, and I'm feeling this turmoil, right? So I pull over, and I'm like, God, okay, if I'm supposed to go pray and interrupt the ambulance to just go pray for somebody, I need a sign. That's what we do, right? I need a sign. I need a sign. And I'm having this intense moment, and then I looked out the window of my car, and I kid you not, right next to my car is a truck that works on the signs over the freeway, and on the side of it says miracle signs.
There
Now,
you go. Ask and
now,
you will receive.
but this is a sin of omission. I was too scared to go do it because I was worried about what people would think. But that one story where I knew that God was the one that was getting my attention, it marked me so that now if so you see an accident or something like that and I feel like I'm supposed to go pray, I stop and I go do it. Um, so what are some of the things that you do to encourage yourself, on to what I would call a sin of omission. So the things that you feel like you're supposed to do that you didn't do. How do you encourage yourself to stay willing to respond to those things?
You have to recognize them in your examination of conscience. And what I realized also is like so I go to sleep every day. I do all the examination of conscience with a whole group of prayers that I have at the very end. Most of the time, all the good ones that I forgot that time will come up in the morning when I open myself. My first hour is always forgot. So if I have to leave, normally I wake up at 6 o'clock. I wake up at 5, and the first hours is prayers, meditation, it's a rosary. It's readings. I do everything for the first hours for him. And I realized once I open, because I pray for people, I pray for my family members, and friends, and people who have struggle, and I do all that. But then suddenly the things from yesterday start popping up. And most of the time, because I'm so busy with them, because I don't want to bring the contact with God, I should do grab my phone, and which is, by the way, turned off. Always do that. Never look at your text message. Don't do that. Turn your freaking phone off. All the alarms off. No sound, no nothing from there, and start typing in the things that you forgot. And then later, after you're done with the prayers, or maybe before you start the prayers, because these prayers are for the people that I just prayed for, then you go over all these points that you didn't do. And those are little things, like I said with the guy, but it's hard to always find examples for that. But there's a lot of things that we don't do but should have done. Like a friend of mine is really good with that, Sean. He's a Christian, and he will, if he sees a person, and I started doing this now. Kevin is also really good with that. We'll see a person, and then the person has a really bad walk or something, whatever it is, and I always see them right away cross and right away pray for that person. And those things, then when you start picking up the next day, you go like, oh my God, I saw that one person. Okay, let's put him now in the prayer that we did that. We went to a place and it was so funny. And somewhere in Jersey, I believe. And we go into the sandwich place. They have the best sandwich stores. And with Kevin, but he's incognito and he got his head up and, he goes right away to the table. I say, I'll get the food together with his assistant. And the guy behind says, hey, you're the guy from Here Comes the Boom. And he says, oh yeah, you're the fighter. Oh, you were also in the movie Here Comes the Boom. Yeah. And at that moment, Kevin walks over, but he's incognito. And me, the idiot, I point at Kevin and the guy loses it. Like, Kevin James! He starts screaming like it's like the most insane thing. And I go, good, but now everybody, I think they start calling people. But anyway, now a lot of people start coming in and they want autographs and they want pictures of that. And then one person, man, and he's in my prayers now too. And thankfully I did that. But in the past, maybe I wouldn't have done it. That's what I'm trying to say with this story. He lost his wife, he lost his daughter, he lost all within 1 year. His mother, and like this horrible thing. And then the way that he was presenting himself, I go, man, you feel so bad for a person to lose three of his closest people in 1 year. Then his wife left him. I mean, it was like this horrible year, but he's so happy to be there and to shake a hand and guys like that. Then I go that like a year or 2 years ago, I I wouldn't have thought about, hey, put that guy in your prayers. You see, and now I do these things. But still, I do forget, but then now I pick it up, and most of the time is that in my morning prayers, not in the evening. I try to go remember everything, but somehow when I slept on it, my mind is more open in the morning. I go, oh, I forgot this one, I forgot this one, I forgot this one. Just write them down so that you don't do it anymore. And then by just doing that, you already became a better person, at least in the eyes of God, Because for some other people, this is the weirdest thing, right? If you say Christian, you want to make a good life, then people get
Right.
angry. Some people are kind of
Right.
like,
Right.
that 14 years ago, I would have knocked you out right now. You should be very happy that I got back to the faith, right?
Right.
Especially in this moment. So let's know now, man, why would you get angry? If somebody wants to improve his life and not only his life, but everybody around him. So that is the weird mind warp we're living in right now. Somehow they think you're stupid. I go like, well, all the examples that I use, and I have way more. I mean, I think you're the complete idiot here. If you don't believe, if you think this is it, I mean, that's a hollow life and you're able to do whatever you want to do. Yeah, well, look at the world. Everybody's overweight. Everybody's on drugs. Everybody just plays video games all day long. I mean, they're wasting their lives. They have nothing. That's what I like with David Goggins. He says, when I go up there, he says, I want to make sure that I did everything possible in my life to do the best the very best that I can. I want to use my life. And that's why I look up to a guy like that because I still don't do that enough. There is more that I can do. And it's every time. But, like if fighting in the beginning, I thought I could never be a champion until suddenly something clicked and I trained with other guys who I thought were way better than me and I was schooling them. I go, whoa, 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 what's going on? And that's when I realized, oh, maybe I can be a champion. And that's when I started growing and started winning. And then I never lost again. So suddenly it changed. And I had the same thing with the faith in the beginning. If you really want to live, you want to be a saint. I mean, do you have any idea how hard that is? I mean, go to St. Peter's Cathedral. There's a lot of these popes there. They don't have a freaking ring above their head. They're not saints,
Mhm.
because there's bad people everywhere. Everywhere you go, there's bad people. But now I start to think, well, it is possible. I'm just going to have to work really freaking hard on it. It's hard, but it's possible. What people don't
Right.
realize that everything that God does, he is doing it. Everything, the whole world, whatever we know, is for him. It's one act because he's outside time and space. If you really think about that, that's like when people say, "Oh, but we can lie down because they know Jesus knows we're weak and frail." No, you can't. They're outside time and space. Whatever he said a couple of thousand years ago, the commandments that he gave to Moses, it's relevant. Even if he would have said it 1 billion years ago, there is no time and space. There's no time.
Right.
So it's as relevant as it was. He already knew we were going to be like that because he knows. He didn't know. He wasn't. He's not going to be. He is. It's a really big concept to grasp your mind around. But if you really think like that, it's already decided what's going to happen with me.
Yeah.
Okay, so why would I worry? And
Right.
that helped me a lot. to just, okay, well, if it is my time, it's my time. At least,
Yeah.
I'm a much better person now than I was 14 years ago. I can tell you that, and I was never a bad person, but, judging and pride, little pride things and these little annoyances. Like I always tell people, because the little pride things are the worst, holding a door open for somebody and the person doesn't thank you and they go, oh, you're welcome. That's pride. You
Mm.
let somebody in traffic and he doesn't thank you, same thing. It's pride. Like all these little examples, when you get aggravated, you're doing it for the wrong reasons. If you do it for a thank you, you're not doing it out of love, right? If you literally do it to help a person, why would you expect something back? That's
Right.
that's not should not be the reason. And once you put that in your thick skull and you realize, oh, I'm doing this all day long, because I was doing that. I figured out this is a good one. I was driving with Kevin, actually. We were driving and somebody cuts us off. And it was a big one, and he goes, man, and he's angry. And I'm sitting shotgun and I start laughing. And he's just an idiot. Don't worry about it. And we're driving and it gets quiet. And I go, oh, God. And he goes, what? I go, dude, it's pride. And he goes, what is pride? He goes, when I'm driving and somebody does that to me, I get angry. But now I'm sitting next to you, shotgun. It happens to you. And I'm not getting angry. I actually started laughing about it. So it has to be that I see it as a personal attack on me. Right? I
Mm.
mean, why wouldn't I get angry right now? That's pride. Like that person drives on the freeway and he sees the car and he goes like, okay, that's probably the 4-time world champion in mixed martial arts, UFC Hall of Famer. Let's go cut him off. Like that's a smart thing
Right.
to do, right? I mean, it's the most insane thing. And then
Yeah.
what I always say, and people heard me tell this story. That guy that just cut you off might have had a phone call that his wife is in the hospital or his kids are in the hospital, and that's why he
Right.
cut you off. So stop assuming, because assuming is pride, because you
Right.
believe that you know what he is thinking, but you don't. There could be 100 reasons. If somebody says not thank you to you, that might have seen the same thing happen, might have just lost a father or a dad or whatever, or a husband, and that's why, and then you say, like I walk on the street and say, hey, how are you doing? And then in the past, if the person would say anything, I say, oh, I'm good, thank you. I was that, why would I do that? Maybe she has agoraphobia. There's so many reasons that can be for her to, or him, it doesn't matter, to respond like that, to not respond like that. So unless
Right.
you don't know the situation, don't assume. Assuming, if you really go think about it, 95% or more, you are wrong. Always. It's never what you think it is. And we always go towards the negative. That's the worst thing, right? You get 100 great responses on a video, one negative one. Where do you think the attention is going? You forget about the 100 great ones immediately. But if you flip it and you do 100 bad ones and one good one, you're not going to focus on the good one. It's
Right.
always the
Right.
bad. And that's how
Right.
we're wired. Everything is anger right now. And that's what I don't understand. Your life can be so much better by just, man, let it go.
Well, now that you've had the transformation come to the faith, so we haven't covered this story in the interview, but you've told it on other podcasts of, you made a lists and of the bullies that picked on you when you were younger and got even with all of them. If you were to meet Xavier on the street today, how would you respond to him?
Um, I would hug him now, because he completely changed my life. He took me under his wing. Did you ever hear the story what happened after that one time with him? I don't think I ever said that. This is good that you say this right now. If I won't meet him right now, I would first hug him, because I think he's afraid of me right now. Because what happened was that one of the two guys that I said when I was a kid, who almost outcast, we formed a group, and he wanted to beat one of them up, and I found it out. But now I was already training, and I was already getting stronger, and people were getting afraid. And I saw him at a place, and I forgot. This is good that you say that. See, this is another one for me. I got to write this down. I forgot what he kind of had done for me in the past. I was so angry at him, because he knows he's my friend, that he said he was going to beat him up the very first time he saw him. So I scared him. I told him, "You touch my friend, I'm going to knock you out." And yeah, I'm very happy you said that, actually, because now if I see him, I would hug him, and then I would say, "Dude, I'm sorry for that. First of all, but I was just a hothead kid, make mistakes." But he really helped me. I mean, thankfully, because he was the tough guy, everybody was afraid of him, but he was a really sweet guy also. And the way he handled me with the birds, and he told me, because I always had birds that would super tame. I mean, they would sit to me. They would pick me up from school. They would know what room I was in, sitting in front of the teachers would get angry because he was, "Wah, wah, wah, wah," he was screaming at me because he knew in what class I was. It was the most insane thing. Would jump on my shoulder. It was everywhere I went, and he did that. He said, "Okay, you got to feed him this, and you got to feed him that." And then he talked to my parents, and they took me. He said, "I take him under my wing, and I'll bring him to the adults. He'll be the only kid. The adults going to take care of him. Don't worry about it. He's not going to get hurt." With taekwondo at the time, and that's where I started developing my skills. And then I started knocking out adults, and then I started hearing him talking about me. So I got confident that that's when I got the first bully, knocked him out. You see, so but that's all because of him. Yeah, that's a good one, man. That you just brought that up because now that's you see, that's another one I completely forgot, and I got to set that straight. So maybe I'm gonna try to see if I can find him on Facebook.
There you go. There you go.
Yeah.
Now, now, has since you've come to the faith, has it changed the way that you relate to other fighters? Because I've noticed, even uh, Quentin, for example, has the God Soldier tattoo, and he has a story of him and his son having a dream, and God crashing into his life. Is that something that you two relate over?
Oh yeah, no, we talked about, but Quentin, we always relate over other things, but we both know it now from each other. And I also found
Hmm.
out, Vito Belfort is very okay, and I heard him speak last week actually at the induction. Mark Kerr was inducted into the UFC Hall of Fame. The Rock was there, Emily Blunt was there, to support him, A24, the people for the production of the movie. But and then I heard Vito speak, and I really liked what he was saying. And he's been back to the faith longer than I was, but I always liked him. I always saw that side of him. So yeah, there's a lot of fighters. I got messages from people I don't even want to mention because you never know, because people are afraid they're going to be expelled. Like I lost lots of followers when I came back out with my story to the faith, and nobody
Uh-huh.
started following me anymore for a year and a half, and then it started growing again. And so, but famous guys who saw me somewhere doing an interview about the rosary, and they go, "Man, I love that interview," and then I go, "Dude, you? I mean, I never expected them." To be Catholic or Christian, so it starts coming more and more. I told Bjornathon, he was one of those guys who fought in Pancras also all the way back. And him and I always stayed close and friends. I'm actually going to hunt with him. I just got a new rifle, picked it up yesterday, really, so all that stuff. And but he was always talking to Matt Hume because I was such a crazy guy. And he said to me later that he always was talking because they're both very religious, they're both Christians. He said, "Man, can you imagine if we can turn Bas to the faith, he can inspire a lot of people, and to hear that from him 25 years later, after I did that, that's cool. So God knows their prayers. God knows,
Yeah.
all these things, they all work together, So, yeah, thank you for that, Todd.
Well, Boss, I just wanted to ask if you would say a prayer for us, for anybody that's watching and that maybe they're struggling with their faith, and just whatever's on your heart.
Yeah, I just, I always in what I always say to myself, and I like to do things in Latin. Omnia cosa funt, nolite temere, Deus est concilium. And that means what I just said. It says everything happens for a reason. Do not be afraid. God has a plan. And every time you have a struggle, and everybody will notice, and you think it's the biggest struggle in the world, once suddenly that struggle is gone, or you lost your job, you lost something, but there's always this other door open. And now suddenly you're in a better life. It happened to you for a reason. Don't be afraid of change. Don't be afraid of the pain. God never gives somebody that something to somebody that he cannot handle or she cannot handle. So you have to
Yeah.
understand it. So if it's really strong, whatever it is, a pain in the head, whatever it is, well, then he really knows that you're a very strong person and you can deal with that. You can go through that suffering, but there's always the end of the rainbow, right? There's always, if you go through hell, what everybody says, just keep going. You got to keep, you can't stop because then you stay there. You have to keep on going. And change is difficult. And sometimes we're in positions that we simply can't see an out, but it's all part of the plan. Let it go and just go with it. It happens for a reason. And most of the time, and from what I understand, and you hear from everybody, at the end, it's a much better life. That's maybe what you are. not maybe, that is what your purpose is, and don't be afraid to go to the faith. It's like I was in the beginning, because you're afraid that other people think you're crazy. But once you really encompass the faith and you start thinking about it and you see all the connections and you see everything, you're going to start thinking exactly the other way around. Like I have some family members who pray to they don't believe in God, they don't believe in Jesus, they don't believe in anything, but they pay a person to talk to the animal that passed away 3 years ago. And I go, open yourself up. And I know we don't have the time anymore, but once you study it and once you go over it, like for instance, what the biggest hit was for me was Matthew 7:3-5. Why do you try to take the splinter out of your brother's eye while you have a wooden beam stuck in your own eye? You hypocrite. Why don't you get rid of the wooden beam first so you can see clearly, and then you can try to remove the little speck or the splinter from your brother's eye? And I go like, that was me. And if every person in the world right now who's screaming the whole time, that is you too. You know it's you. If you look at that, because we all do it. We all tell people how good life can be, and but we don't do it ourselves. And preaching and doing are completely different things. But Saint Francis says, don't tell me to do something, show me. And
Right.
once you show it, and once you said that no, and you step up and you do it, and then also things, if you go to a disease or something with pain, stop eating the things that are bad for you. Like there's a lot of food that causes inflammation. Figure out what it is, or go just carnivore, or even if you don't want to, only vegetables. But a lot of these foods they order to get inflammation, and now you're hurting more. And it's like a circle. You keep on doing it, and you try to pop it away with pills. Pills are never the answer. God gave us our bodies for a reason. We can fix ourselves. We don't need anything. Really don't need. And but it's hard at moments, and especially mentally. I was
Hmm.
depressed for about 3 months in my life. That was my last fight, and I was always looking at the TV with those depression commercial, the pills, with these people walking around. I go, come on, man, just think happy thoughts. That's literally what I said.
Hmm.
And then when you are depressed, it was the most scary time in my life. I was committed. If I wouldn't have had a family, I might have killed myself. I was literally driving on the freeway thinking I'm going to park my car against the freeway. And I go, what am I thinking? I had a family. It was so crazy and I couldn't control it. And if I can't control something, so I feel for these people. That's why I do a lot for mental health as well, because those people it's very hard. But guess what? You can't come out of it. And many times, and this is going to sound stupid, it's the food. Inflammation nowadays, it's in a lot of stuff. Get rid of that. Eat something very clean. Don't feed what you want. Feed yourself at what is healthy for you. And like my breakfast is boring. It's boring. It's boring, but it's very clean. And I make it myself. Now I can also choose to do something else, but I'm not going to feel great. But it all starts with a healthy body and a healthy mind. So keep going through it for the people who are going through
Yeah.
it. And because you got to go through it. Once you're on the other side, it's going to be better.
Right. And I think it was St. Francis that said, preach the gospel at all times. And if you have to, use words.
That's the one. Yep. That's it.
Right.
Yep. That's it.
Well, Bas, thank you for joining us. And
You're
we just
welcome.
bless everybody that was able to watch the program.
Thank you very
Thanks
much,
again.
Jeff. Yeah, that was nice. It was fun. It's fun to talk about it, and hopefully it inspires some people. I have a lot of people from Holland sending me a message. They went back to the church, and they're so happy right
Amen.
now. I have other friends that come to me. They said, "Dude, you changed my life," because I did start looking into it. And it's just like, oh, because you hear these crazy people, the people who kind of ruin it for us a little bit, and God bless them, as these Bible quotas like constantly throwing at you, and they say it to everybody. It comes over really crazy for people who don't want to do it, guys. Start
Right.
slowly, and once they're engaged, then yes, do it. But for others, it's like, my God, he's constantly quoting, he's constantly quoting, he's constantly quoting. And it's also some form of pride again. Watch out with pride. Because I know these quotes, I know these quotes, I know these quotes. Don't things. It's very hard to be humble and to have humility. And you know what humility means? Doesn't mean praying all day long. It doesn't mean, it's a very simple experience. Living in accordance with the truth. That's the definition of humility. Think about that. But you have another thought about it. We all think it's something different. It's simply living in accordance with the truth. Now, do that, and you're going to be just fine. Veritas, truth. The truth will set you free, right?
That's right.
That's what the Pontius Pilate said. What is truth? Yeah, he had to learn. He didn't go to a good place, I think.
No, right, yeah. Well, and it's also, I mean, I don't know if you've noticed this, but even in the gospel story that with the tree and the leaves, and you becoming saved through the tree and the leaves, and now
Yeah.
you're hearing other people are coming to the faith because of your story. What's happening? Your life has become a tree, and the leaves are producing in other people's lives.
See, it's a beautiful thing, and
It's
you can
amazing.
tell. I have another friend that's, you should see his life, man. This guy, he's constantly laughing, smiling. He's so happy. And it says it's all the faith plus. It changed my life. And that's what it did for me too. That's why I started adding to it,
Yeah.
every time more, because every time I felt better, and then people go, we don't have the time, do like me, wake up at 5. Yesterday I was up at 3 because my neighbor, apparently she's on medication right now, pain medication, at 2:30 a.m. Looking for a cat, like this loud. So after 45 minutes, you go, Martha, what the heck is going on? It's a cat. Oh, hey, you can whisper. It's okay. So I couldn't go to sleep anymore. I had to get up at 5. So I go, okay, God, I guess the first 3 hours are for you right now. And I just let him hang out outside in my anti-gravity chair and relaxed. And I just enjoy the time. More time for him.
Yeah. God wanted 3 hours that day. So,
Yeah.
well,
Yeah.
Bas, thank you again, and wishing you the best and all the success on the upcoming movie, The Smashing Machine, with The Rock and Emily Blunt. Thanks again, Bas.
Thank you very much. Look very much forward to it. Jeff, Godspeed, my friend.
God bless you.